It's really me and doing something this time. I was just testing microphones there. And it's a beautiful room, though. You know, the Rothe House is one of the many treasures that Kilkenny has. For people who've never been to Kilkenny before, it's medieval city, has a lot of buildings and architecture that was made for the human voice because it was built in medieval times. But St. Canice's Cathedral is a perfect example where it's built for the sound of the human voice and acoustic instruments. And Rothe House is exactly the same. There's beautiful rooms here. There's a wooden floor room over there, and it absolutely adores traditional music, which is lovely, a lovely coincidence. So here's another example. As part of TradFest, we have the Scattered Sessions, which is the start, hopefully, of a series of musical events that will carry on around TradFest as well. It was lovely to be able to bring everything together, a bit of co-harlu. And one of the lovely things about TradFest is being able to bring music that comes from the tradition and maybe is brought out on a different instrument like we have here. And I've never been up close, I've never been up close to a hammered dulcimer. I've heard the music that Brian has, for example, and we talked about it with Oisín a couple of weeks back, and I just can't wait. So there'll be a bit of a chat beforehand, and this machine will do the talking afterwards. So please welcome on stage Brian Leach and Oisín Quigley.
So I think everyone can hear both of us, I think so. Yeah, Brian?
Sounds
I'm loud
good.
enough anyway. So
Can hear you.
But yeah, so welcome to the inaugural edition of Scattered Sessions. Thank you so much for joining the two of us. It's kind of, you know, a hybrid event where we're mixing a bit of musicology, or in a casual way, hopefully, with a demonstration and concert performances from artists like Brian. And of course, the more we get to do it in venues like this, maybe the better, as Martin said. Rooms like this love sound. So I think a good place to start is basically how me and Brian met, and how we ended up here.
Yeah.
And part of that is, so we both studied luthiery, instrument making in Cork, in St. John's Central College, under Declan Young, and he was like a real fantastic mentor for kind of getting the most out of you on what is like a very difficult thing to tackle, especially for the first time. So the two of us kind of learned, I think as far as like medieval times, how to go about putting together guitars and stuff, and so we learned from the ground up.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way, that's right. And then I quickly learned that I didn't want to do it. And Brian, God love him, stuck with it, and somehow started a company called Cork Guitars, which is like having the number 1 as your telephone number. I don't know how you managed that.
Yeah, that was probably the best thing I ever bought, was that website name. It was a good one.
Yeah, and so, yeah, after a long day in the workshop, we used to go back to Brian's house and have cups of tea and watch tiny desk concerts. The NPR, the world famous NPR Tiny Desk concerts. Yeah. And I remember the two of us, Anderson .Paak had just released his, I think it's the most viewed one actually.
Okay.
And we were kind of like, oh, this is amazing. I can't believe people are doing this.
Yeah.
And then, cut to about 7 years later, I've gone down the road of musicology. Brian is now touring the world as a hammered dulcimer player. And one of those shows included a tiny desk concert with Lisa O'Neill.
Yeah.
And
that was good.
That was great. So you just got off tour with Lisa, actually. So
yeah,
that was in the UK, was that right?
Yeah, that's right. We were in the UK for 2 weeks. So yeah, I've been playing in her band for the last, I guess, 3 years or more. And yeah, we've been all over the world, and that was a huge one to be on the tiny desks and do that was kind of a big moment of recognition for her music, really. Like, you know, I was just in the band, so it wasn't my thing. But yeah, I remember we played Old Note, and I'd get a bit of a solo in that. So I was playing that, and it was actually bad because we decided for the time we were supposed to cut it down a bit, and I went with the original version that we always played live and took an extra solo, and then in the moment kind of realised, oh, I better go with it now. So yeah. I got it.
That's how it happens, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the bit I skip to
Yeah.
when I watch it, yeah.
Me too.
So, so I think, there's a lot to talk with you about, because Brian, as an instrument maker and someone actually have a degree in physics, you think about music in a very, how would you say, there's kind of a scientist's approach to how you think about frequencies, let's say.
There is, I suppose, for me, music has been everything for me, really. It's just always something that I loved. So everything that I've studied in the world, I think, is like feeding into it in some way. Like the science does come into it in understanding what way the frequencies are interacting, why things are harmonious, how that represents itself mathematically. That always fascinated me as well. And then to get to study guitar building and learn how the materials are interacting to create something that can create this sound that comes out. That was just absolutely fascinating to me, and learning that attention to detail, really, that we learned from Declan in the guitar building course in St. John's was like, it kind of opened up the world in another way. Because I remember we were putting the bridge onto the guitar, you know, on the front of the acoustic guitar. Yeah. It's like the white piece, and then there's a dark piece of wood there that has to be fitted exactly. And I remember sanding it down. Declan, it's ready. I've got it perfect. And he comes over and looks at it. No. Yeah. Look. And then I just saw this other level that was like, oh, okay. Yeah. It was like getting a microscope into the attention.
You're suddenly aware of what an actual flat surface is.
Yeah, something like that. Or a very precisely curved surface, as it may be. Yeah. But I think that transfers into other things as well. That attention to detail is something I like to hang on to, and I'm very grateful to him for showing me that, because it's important to look at this other level that you didn't even realize existed, you know, until it's been shown to you.
Yeah, and it's actually, you know, it's on such a small scale that then it makes things on a bigger scale kind of easier to do and easier to understand, you know, yes. Even if it is like building a shelf or something, yeah. When you're working at that level. Yeah. But one thing that you were always focused on, if not obsessed really, was lots of strings.
That's true, yeah.
So yeah. Brian had this in his first year. You hadn't made a guitar at that point, is that right?
No, the first guitar I made was with Declan in there, yeah.
And he came up with a design, putting your physics mind to use, where he had sympathetic strings running through the neck of the guitar, so that they would resonate in sympathy with the 6 strings you would play normally. Yeah. And so you kind of got a guitar, kind of sitar hybrid, maybe.
Yeah, something like that. It had kind of been done before, like the Hardanger fiddle is actually like that. They've got a normal fiddle, but there's a hollow piece in the neck with extra strings. And the sitar is kind of like that as well, where the strings run up the centre of the neck. So yeah, but I definitely did want to put extra strings onto everything. That was something. So, yeah.
But there's actually a great one about the sitar now that you mention it. But the difference between maybe what you did or a guitar and a sitar, there's a huge difference really. But one of the main differences is that there's little bits of string right by the bridge. And there's an old story that they teach sitar that each guru passes down to their student. And it's that the magic of the sound is in the bits of string. And so in ancient times, bandits would come along and try to rob the sitars. Wow. And the sitar player would say, the string is the valuable little bit, take that. The rest of it's useless.
Nice. Yeah. There you go. Well, maybe I'd be pretty annoyed if someone took the strings off this. I think it would cause an awful lot of trouble.
I'll just check my notes because there's a couple of other things. So, okay. I mean, we can talk a bit about the hammer dulcimer, I think, in particular. So, I was there actually around the time you got there. You got this instrument.
Yeah.
And you repaired it, actually. So you can tell that story a little bit.
Yeah, I brought it in. We were learning about repairing instruments as well in that course, so I brought it in to repair it because it had gotten a bit damaged on the soundboard. So Declan helped me to fix that. But I'd actually got this instrument from Li Yunhe, who's a traditional Chinese player that I was studying music technology with in the School of Music in Cork. And we just got on really well and started playing music together. And he was showing me something about Chinese traditional music, and he wanted to learn Irish music. So we went around. I played mandolin and banjo, and went around playing some gigs with him. And I remember going up to play at the Chinese New Year in Dublin, and we were running to get a bus, and he was pulling this along in the case with the little wheels on it, and the wheels are all like falling off, and the whole thing was coming to pieces because it had gotten a bit trashed on the plane on the way to Ireland when he brought it over. So basically, when he had to go back home, he asked me would I mind it, because he knew that if he put it on the plane, it might not come off in one piece, so it was better to leave it. So I've been minding it for like 13 years now. It's good. Thanks, Lee. Yeah.
So one of the things about setting up this in general, like today, it's a very changeable day, and stringed instruments are temperamental. So part of what you do is, well, I guess you could explain what you need to do.
Well, to keep it in tune really is a big thing, and I've met lots of people that have hammered dulcimers but don't necessarily play them, and I think probably one of the reasons for that is the difficulty of tuning it, that you'd want to be interested in that sort of thing, which I think it was always a skill that I had, like playing guitar when I was a teenager at parties in college, passing the guitar around. It would come back to me to tune it because it would be gone out of tune, and I did have the will and the ear, I guess, to keep things in tune, which is why repairing guitars and setting up instruments in the business Cork Guitars was something that attracted me as well. But I've since left that to concentrate on music, and I just keep my own instruments in tune now. So
yeah,
it's good. But the temperature does definitely affect it, and yeah, you'll see. Hopefully, it'll behave itself now when I'm playing later. But I might need to take a few minutes to tune it here and there. We'll see.
And another thing that affects it is the timbre of the instrument is the hammers. And you have a cool set of hammers that you've had commissioned.
Yeah, I do. I've got a special set of glass hammers. So yeah.
Would you believe that? He bought glass hammers.
There you go. Well, that was always the story, wasn't it? Like, in your first job, you're sent to get a bucket of steam or a glass hammer or something
rubber
like
nails
that.
or something. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. So I met an amazing glass artist called Lulu Glass, and she's an American actually, but living in Leach. And we're going to be working together. I'm going to make music for a glass show that she's putting on in the Leitrim Sculpture Centre over the next month. Basically, in a month that'll be opening. And so I asked her, would she be able to make a glass hammer, which I think doesn't exist. Like, I've never seen a glass hammer other than that joke.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. So now they do exist. So
what do they look like? I mean, do you have them to hand? Yeah.
I've got them here.
And what would you normally use?
Those are the glass ones anyway. So, like, I think it's a bit dangerous. Like, I feel like someday I'm going to be playing and they're going to break, because I wouldn't want to drop them on this floor, certainly. So yeah, you'll hear them later. I'll save that. But you can use all sorts of things. Like, usually I've got a collection of different ones. They're the kind of traditional ones that you'd see often in like the Western dulcimer. This is more like the Eastern style. Oh, I don't have when Master Lee left me this, he took the hammers with him. He was saying, I need these. He'd always keep them in his pocket there. Yeah. They were like gold pins. Dust, because how could you couldn't get another one, But they're actually made of bamboo and very long, like quite long, maybe even that long, with a big spring in them and really light, so you could move them around. even before he left this to me, I started building dulcimers as well, because I just really loved the idea. So I built some really small ones. And of course, I had to build the hammers as well. So there's loads of different kinds of ones. Like Michael O'Shea was an experimental dulcimer player, and he built his own instruments. And he always used these paintbrushes. It's like a number 2 or a number 4 paintbrush that you get in any art supply shop was the one that he used. And sometimes they have the metal piece on the end, and he'd just cut off the hair of the brush and use that. But I preferred something that had a bit of more of a kind of a head on it like that. So they're the ones that I'm using now normally, and that's Siberian larch, which is a really good, strong, light timber with leather glued to the ends to make a less kind of sharp sound, less kind of zingy than the traditional Chinese ones. A more kind of warm sound, I suppose, is what I'm usually kind of going for. And the glass ones are like the opposite. They're super high sound. Yeah. But you get something amazing because, you know, there's a certain amount of give and bounce in the wood, but you can imagine glass doesn't really have any give at all. So it just gives you like free notes kind of, because it'll just bounce and rattle off it more easily. So yeah, it's great. Yeah.
And there's covers, kind of, you can get like little kind of slips for the heads, isn't that right? I've read that somewhere.
You can with some ones. The traditional Chinese ones did have kind of rubber bits over the end. And I've seen some other ones that were made of metal and stuff like that. Andy Dowling was an old dulcimer player. He's passed away now, but there's a video from like the 50s, a black and white video where he's interviewed, and I actually met, just by coincidence, some of his ancestors, and they showed me his old instruments that are kind of in disrepair now. But it was the hammers really blew me away, because he'd made them himself, presumably out of like, it was like something you'd see. It was like he'd found something that you might see around the place and just bent it into shape to make his own hammers. But they were like a big long piece of metal that were curved around into a big loop, so it was like a much kind of larger head on it, I guess, which would be kind of unusual for me, but it's the joy of it that you can make something that suits yourself quite easily, you know.
That's true, yeah. So I was talking to Brian earlier today over breakfast. Yeah, that's what people do, over coffee. And we're talking about the difficulty for any artist of any kind to balance their own vision and what they want to do with their music and what's commercially viable, let's say. And there's an interesting crossover thing that I told you I would save it for this.
Yeah, you mentioned it. What is it then?
So there was a study done on in around Hong Kong on the Chinese hammer dulcimer hammers and the effect the material you play with versus if people like the timbre or not.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, right? So this
so
is
you could
cool.
be having great fun, but it doesn't sound good. It's possible.
So it was found that kind of copper or metallic type ones, they were rated very low. Whereas I think rubber...
By the listener, you mean?
By the listeners.
Yes, yeah.
And then I think it was rubber heads were favoured with like lively and kind of like jigs, basically, you know, like faster tempo and kind of more lively music. And then for kind of slower, more dramatic music, I think it was just it was plastic.
Okay.
Interestingly. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I think I always went for the kind of warmest sound, which I think is pleasant to me.
Yeah.
Like the thing with this instrument as well, because the soundboard is facing you. Like on a guitar, the sound is being pushed out to the person you're looking at, but on this, it's just coming straight into the face of the player. So I think you don't want something that's going to be too harsh on yourself as a player. Yeah,
you're right above it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like the warm sound anyway. Hopefully it's coming out warm there too.
But you see the similar thing with like maybe slide guitar and the different slides people use.
Yeah.
And glass slides are often preferred for their kind of soft, soft kind of tone.
Yeah, I like the glass slide when I messed around with slide guitar, but they'd always get smashed, so they just didn't last. So
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
there you go.
So other than, let's say the traditional way of playing this, what kind of other like devices or ways of playing it have you
Oh yeah.
explored with? Because you can look at this as a very ornate special instrument, and that will get you so far into the mindset of creating music in one direction. Or you might just say this is a box with strings on it, and that might get you somewhere else. And do you ever find yourself kind of jumping between frames of mind for different purposes, like compositionally, let's say?
Yes, definitely. Well, it was through necessity really, because when I recorded on Lisa O'Neill's last album, All of This Is Chance, there was Colin McAnumber was playing the fiddle on it, and he played some gigs with us, but he wasn't always there to play. So we wanted this kind of bowed sound, or I felt like where is this sound? The sound is missing. Can I do that? Is it possible to bow this somehow? And came up with two ways, which I'll show you one way actually there, because I was thinking it might be cool to show you this because people love it, and I wasn't going to do it later in the show, so I don't mind showing you now. But it was actually the idea of Vicky Davis, and she's a great performance artist and experimental musician. And she said, "Why don't you take the bow hair and thread it around through the string, so you can try and get it, and it works really well to get a drone sound." So yeah, that's a new kind of way of doing it. And I think that may have been done before, I think by John Cage. Someone said he'd threaded up some things and pulled them through pianos and stuff, but it was a new idea to me. And the other thing I did then, that you're stuck on one note pretty much with that, or you can't move very easily. But another thing that I did was with a violin bow, and I was inspired by, you can get these little things, they're called like Picasso bows, they're like for guitar, and they're like a tiny little bow. And I didn't really think it was going to work, but I said, okay, I may as well invest in this and see if it's going to work for me. And it didn't work at all. I didn't like it. But there was a little sheet of paper when you took it out of its little pocket saying, whatever you do, don't touch the hair on the bow. So I thought, that gives me an idea. So I took the violin bow and I did, and I managed to find a way of by touching it with my hands to push the hair down. And of course you could get the strings on the edge with a bow quite easily, but how could you get the ones in the middle? Because they're all in a flat surface. So if you want to choose one, it would seem that's impossible to do that with a violin bow, but I figured out a way of doing it by breaking the rules basically and touching the hair that you're not supposed to.
Brilliant. So, that's how innovation happens, really.
Yeah, no, that was a good one.
Yeah. I was wondering about its specific application then to Irish traditional music, and it's a very interesting thing because this is an ancient type of instrument, originating in Persia, maybe 669 BC, I think is what I found.
Cool, yeah. I'd heard maybe 1,000 years ago roughly, but if that's an older,
and it would have
of
precursors as well, even kind of a gamelan type instruments, Balinese gamelan, or lithophones. They're considered one of the older instruments, which are
like a tuned percussion, I suppose.
A piece of stone cut to a length and tuned against itself, really. And this is a descendant of that instrument, and they date about 5,000 years ago. So there's something like Irish traditional music as we know it now is dance music from the 1700s, or give or take. But this, you'll hear it later obviously, but it suits the genre somehow. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts about that. Yeah,
I do. Well, there's often that question of, is it traditional? And it's a fair question, but someone sent me a picture from one of these old illuminated manuscripts that was made in Ireland in the year 1200 or something like that. And there's a picture of 4 lads. There's someone with a fiddle. There's someone with, I think, a hurdy-gurdy. There's someone, I'm not sure, there's something else as well, I think. And there's someone with a little box with strings on it and 2 little things. Like, it's a hammer dulcimer, to me anyway. So I think it proves that it was known maybe 800 years ago. I mean, it definitely was, because there's a picture of it in this old book. It's like the Book of Kells or something, but it's a different one, and it's like in Czechia or somewhere like that. It's not even in Ireland.
Yeah.
But it was made in Ireland at that time. So it just was in the tradition, but I think a lot of instruments didn't survive the climate in Ireland for 800 years, you know. So it may not have survived very much, but there's a handful of players like Andy Dowling. You can look up a video of him playing. Barry Carroll is another guy who plays it currently. He's up in Dublin, and he plays trad on it. So the tradition has survived in some way, but it's just so uncommon that even trad players are like, "What's that? That's not Irish."
Yeah.
But it is, because it was in that old manuscript, you know.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Even though this version obviously comes from China, but I've made other versions myself, so they're Irish ones. And traditionally, people would have made their own. They would have just copied designs.
You've actually
and
made kind of a version of this out of like a door as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have made a really big one, like a full door with just strings all over it. So that's kind of, it's a mad one.
And it works.
It works, it's great, yeah.
Cool.
But I do think it is, I think it is traditional. It suits the tradition, and it's played. Even I was talking to yourselves from the US, and you said in Michigan there's a lot of people playing hammer dulcimer, traditional Irish music on hammer dulcimer. So it is the case that it's gone abroad and survived there. You know, that's the way it's happened in that case. So
I have maybe some thoughts about why it works in the genre. Yeah. And I think the first thing that comes to mind is sympathetic resonance, like we were talking earlier. And there's always a bed of sound. Is this quite a difficult instrument to stop sound from happening?
Yes, it is. You can get versions that have a damper, like a piano. And I think, that's the final point of why it's not so common, I think, in any genre, but especially in Ireland, is that it evolved into the piano. So the keyboard was attached to it, and the hammer, there was a dedicated hammer for each note.
Yeah.
So it's an ancestor of the piano, and the piano has been hugely popular because it's an incredibly expressive instrument as well. But you can get dulcimers that have a damper and a foot pedal and kind of like a brake cable that goes up to it that'll stop the sound.
Wow, yeah.
So you can use that. It's the same as the sustain pedal on a piano.
On a piano.
But it's the other way around, because it's not to sustain, it's to stop rather than, so it's just flipping it that way. But in terms of playing, I don't stop the sound. I
just let it breathe.
I just let it all ring out, And I think that's one of the really interesting things that you'll hear. Hopefully you'll be able to hear it and appreciate it. Like, you get odd harmonies because you're playing some, part of the melody might make out on arpeggio, and then that's ringing out while you're playing the next phrase, which is based on a different chord. So you're getting every note at once, but there's always the next note is being hit percussively to surpass that bed of sound. And
that was the other thing I was going to say. There's this attack on the notes. It's a bit like a banjo, and you can kind of hear. It's very percussive sounding, and that's it's very rhythmic. And obviously you'd have that in Irish traditional music as well, with even traditional dance. So I think in one instrument you kind of have like a facsimile, I guess you want to say, of an uilleann pipe drone, or kind of this kind of sean-nós, microtonal kind of feel and sound world, and you also have that dead-on rhythm that Cayley bands like the Kilfenora Cayley band are just excellent at for their dancers, you know.
I think you can hear it sometimes if you're. It's like the way the feet would move for a sean-nós dancer. You can hear those sort of rhythms come out, and the hands are doing what the feet would be doing to someone who's going to dance in that style.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very, very rhythmic and percussive, and yeah, it reminds me a bit of like the way Cormac Bedley plays the concertina.
Yes.
And I remember just hearing so much percussion in that and thinking, how is that coming out? Like, you know, that it's a percussive thing, even though you're turning on and off these switches. But
and that goes back to maybe what was thought of as an undesirable sound, especially by sound engineers.
Yeah, the little clicks and things.
The little clicks and things, and then using that to create music and innovate on the genre.
Yeah, so, don't get rid of those things that you think are standing out. Let them come through.
The interesting thing to kind of consider is there's possibilities and limitations in each instrument that plays a tune, and that shapes the tune, and that pushes forward the advancements in the genre, because you know, someone will pick up on exactly what you were saying about the wrong way to do the thing, and then it's actually interesting.
What happens with this, if you hit a wrong note, it ends up ringing out like that. You could try and stop it, but you're not fooling anyone, you know. So I mean, I used to play jazz as well. I played guitar in a jazz band and stuff like that. So then there's no wrong notes really, you know. It's just, I didn't mean to play that chord, but it's making some spicy harmonies.
That's
that
right.
I'm just going to enjoy them for what they are, because they're happening.
Yeah. So I think we'll leave the chat there now. I think it's a good place to finish it.
Yeah. Cool.
And we're going to take a quick 5-minute break if people want to go to the toilet or just take a bit of a walk outside. You're welcome to do that. And we're just going to do a quick little change over here, and Brian will be back with you. Cool. So thank you all.
Thanks, Oisín. Thank you.